You walk into a room and they feel it, or they don't. Before you speak, before you smile, before a single word is exchanged, there is a current, an invisible law. Either you command the space, or it swallows you. Respect is not given, it is sensed. And until you understand this one law, you will always be explaining yourself, defending yourself, trying to be liked, and never truly seen. This is not about dominance. It's about presence and the hidden power that comes from knowing who you are without asking for permission, the invisible force that shapes how others treat you. You think people listen to your words. You think they respond to your kindness, your intelligence, your intentions. But deep beneath their surface smiles, they are watching something else. They are measuring something ancient. It's not charisma. It's not confidence. It's presence, the unspoken command of someone who doesn't need to beg for space. Presence is the language of the wolf who walks alone and is still feared. It is the law of the jungle in human form, the raw, unedited signal that says, I am enough. I am not to be underestimated. People don't remember what you say. They remember how they felt when you walked in. If your presence whispers apology, the world will treat you like a mistake. If it radiates quiet authority, the world rearranges itself around you. Why people instinctively measure your power. Every human being is an animal in disguise. We wear suits, we say polite things, we follow social codes, but underneath, instinct remains. We scan for hierarchy. We feel status before we recognize faces. When you enter a space, they feel your story before you speak it. They sense whether you belong, whether you've betrayed yourself, whether you're asking for approval. This is why some people are interrupted constantly and others never are. Why one person must shout to be heard while another only has to glance. It is not about what you do, it is about who you are being. Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if your why is to be accepted, to not disturb, to be liked? Then you have no power, because power begins with not needing anything from the room you walk into. The tragic cost of trying to please you, thought being nice would earn you respect. That by being generous, accommodating, agreeable, people would value you, but they don't. They exploit you, overlook you, forget you. Why? Because the need to please is a confession. It tells the world, I don't think I'm enough on my own, so let me buy your love. But love bought is never real, and respect begged for is always denied. You wear the mask of the good one, the helpful one, the selfless one, and secretly you die inside every time they take you for granted. But they didn't betray you, you did, by putting their approval above your own self-respect. Power is not about aggression. It is about refusing to trade your soul for crumbs of validation. Respect begins where explanation ends. How many times have you tried to explain yourself, to justify your feelings, your limits, your silence? Every time you do, you give away something sacred, because the need to explain is a symptom of inner doubt. Imagine this: a mountain does not justify its shape. The ocean does not explain why it roars. You too must become unapologetic, not rude, not arrogant, but sovereign. The moment you stop trying to be understood, you begin to be respected, because real presence says, I am not here to be small enough to fit your expectations. I am here to be what I am. And that is the silent law, the law they can feel, even if they don't understand it. The law that makes them listen, the law that says, you don't chase respect, you embody it. How subtle self-betrayal breeds quiet contempt. You think you're being kind when you say yes to what you don't want. You think you're being polite when you shrink yourself to keep the peace. But the truth is darker and far more dangerous. Every small betrayal of your truth whispers a message to the world. I will not protect myself, and the world listens. They may smile at you, they may even thank you, but deep down, they begin to disrespect you. Not because they are cruel, but because human nature does not trust the one who abandons themselves. Self-betrayal creates an invisible rot. You feel it in your chest when you nod along and you don't mean it. You feel it in your gut when you smile while being disrespected. And the worst part, they feel it too. The myth of kindness without strength. You were taught to be nice, to be agreeable, to be the one who doesn't cause problems. You were told this would make you lovable, safe, accepted, but you weren't told the full truth. Kindness without strength is manipulation, because when you're kind to be liked, to avoid conflict, to keep people close, it's not really kindness, it's strategy born from fear. And the result? People instinctively know they can cross your boundaries. They sense that your smile is not backed by fire. They feel the absence of steel beneath your softness. True kindness does not beg. It does not fear rejection. It flows from wholeness, not need. And when it comes from strength, it heals. When it comes from weakness, it invites predators. Why over-apologizing destroys your dignity. You apologize too much. For your words, for your silence, for existing too loudly or too quietly, but each apology chips away at your throne. Not the sincere apology that comes from integrity, but the compulsive kind. The one that says, I don't believe I deserve to take up space. You think it makes you humble, but what it actually does is train the world to see you as lesser. You become the person who always moves aside, the one who softens the blow, swallows the pain, carries the burden, and eventually the one whose name they forget. Dignity cannot survive when you are always on your knees. There comes a time when you must rise and say with your posture alone, I am not sorry for existing as I am. And from that moment, everything changes. Learning to be calm instead of submissive. There is a difference between peace and submission. One comes from power, the other comes from fear. Submission is pretending you don't feel what you feel, just to keep the illusion of safety. But calm, real calm, comes from knowing that you can stand alone. It's the silence of a storm that knows its strength. To be calm is to look rejection in the eye and not flinch. To feel insult and remain unmoved, not because you're numb, but because you know it cannot touch your worth. This is how respect is born, not by raising your voice, but by refusing to be shaken, not by dominating, but by being unshakably grounded in yourself. In a world full of reactive noise, the one who remains still becomes the most powerful presence in the room. Your posture, eyes, and silence as weapons. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to argue to prove you're right. In truth, the most powerful people in the room say the least. Why? Because power lives in how you carry yourself. Your posture, straight, unyielding, unapologetic. Your eyes, calm, focused, not searching for approval. Your silence, not passive, but charged with presence. There is a kind of silence that suffocates weak energy, a kind of eye contact that makes lies crumble, a way of standing still that makes the arrogant nervous. You are always broadcasting something, not with your voice, but with your being. The question is, are you radiating fear or command? The art of walking away and meaning it. The one who is willing to walk away holds the power. Always. Whether it's in love, in work, in any negotiation, the one who doesn't need it leads it. And most people can't do this because they've made their identity out of being accepted, out of being wanted, chosen, needed. So they stay where they're disrespected. They plead where they should walk. They shrink where they should rise. But imagine this. You get up mid-conversation and leave, not out of anger but clarity. You end relationships when your soul feels the erosion. You say no without guilt, yes without desperation, and goodbye without fear. This is not coldness, this is self-respect, and nothing commands attention like someone who values their own energy enough to leave. Why boundaries speak louder than arguments? Words are cheap. You can explain your needs 100 times. You can debate, reason, justify. But the moment you draw a boundary and enforce it, the game changes, because action cuts through all illusions. When you remove yourself from a toxic room, when you stop replying to disrespect, when you stop chasing and start choosing, you become undeniable. Boundaries don't just protect your soul, they define your power, and you'll know they're working when people react. When they call you selfish, when they say you've changed, they're right, you have. You've stopped living on your knees. You've remembered that self-abandonment is not love, that sacrifice is not virtue when it kills your spirit. You've remembered that your silence, your distance, your absence can speak louder than any scream. Becoming the type of person people don't test. There is a type of person the world doesn't push, not because they're violent, not because they're loud, but because they walk with something sacred behind their eyes. That person is you. When you stop performing, when you stop being nice and start being real, you become hard to manipulate, hard to guilt, hard to confuse. You become a mystery they respect because your energy says, I know who I am. I do not fear your rejection. I have no mask to offer you. And this, more than charm, more than knowledge, more than fame, is what makes people sit up when you speak. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. You just need to become the one who doesn't flinch. That's when they stop testing you. That's when they start respecting you. How Nietzsche's Übermensch commands, respect without asking Nietzsche, spoke of the Übermensch, not as a tyrant, but as one who creates their own values. The Übermensch does not seek to be accepted. He is not a reaction to the world, but a force that creates it, and that is the deepest law of power. Stop playing by rules you never wrote. The average person begs for approval, bends to every trend, changes masks to fit the moment. But the one who is respected, truly respected, is the one who stands alone in his truth, even if the whole world turns its back. He does not explain. He does not shout. He simply is. The moment you stop trying to be enough for others, you become more than enough for yourself, and the world, confused and drawn, begins to orbit you. The danger of needing validation. The need to be validated is the leash around your neck. It keeps you tame, predictable, easy to control. Every time you look outward for your worth, you place your power in someone else's hands. You become addicted to praise, afraid of disapproval. You dilute your voice to fit their ears. And worst of all, you forget what your voice even sounds like. But what if you stopped chasing validation? What if you risked being misunderstood, unliked, judged? What would be left? You, unfiltered, unashamed, unedited. And that raw authenticity is magnetic, because most people are fragments, but the one who is whole is unforgettable. Creating values, others instinctively follow you. Want respect? Then stop quoting others. Stop mimicking. Stop conforming. Create your own rules, your own path, your own way of living. This doesn't mean being rebellious for the sake of rebellion. It means digging so deep into your essence that your life becomes a philosophy. When you do this, when your actions align with your internal law, people feel it. They may not agree with you, they may not understand you, but they will sense your clarity, your power, your depth. And in a world of echo chambers and sheep, the one who speaks from his soul becomes a leader. Even in silence, you don't need a crown. You just need conviction. That's how kings are born. Living as if you were your own sovereign. Imagine this. You wake up, and before anyone tells you who to be, you already know. You don't check your phone to see who likes you. You don't wait for permission to be bold. You don't ask the world what you're worth. You declare it. This is sovereignty. To live not as a subject, but as the source. Not as a follower of culture, but as the creator of your own myth. It is not about arrogance. It's about returning to the throne you abandoned long ago. When you live as your own law, the world adjusts. They stop talking over you. They stop doubting you because they feel it. Your authority is not borrowed. It's earned, forged, embodied, and that cannot be ignored. Stop asking for respect. Embody it. Respect is not something you request. It is something you become. Every time you ask, plead, or perform for respect, you betray a deeper truth. You still believe it lies outside you. But the highest form of respect comes when you no longer need it, because you have found something higher, integrity. You do not demand to be seen. You simply live as someone who sees themselves clearly, fully, fiercely, without apology. You don't chase respect because you are already walking as someone who deserves it. And that is when it begins to follow you, silently, wherever you go. Rebuilding your identity on power, not permission. Most people live as applications. Every action is a request. Every decision is filtered through the question, will they like me if I do this? But you are not here to beg for identity. You are here to build it, brick by brick, boundary by boundary, silence by silence. You tear down the borrowed beliefs. You discard the guilt that was never yours. You stop editing yourself into fragments just to be palatable, and you begin again from the ground of your own truth. This time, you do not ask for permission. You write your own laws and you live them, with your back straight and your soul intact. Facing solitude without fear. Power often begins in loneliness, because when you stop compromising for connection, you will feel the void that your masks used to fill, and it hurts. To sit with yourself, unarmored, unliked, unfiltered, but in that silence, you begin to hear the voice you forgot, the one that does not flatter, the one that does not beg, the voice of your essence. It is in solitude that you remember. You are enough without applause. You are worthy without performance. And from this sacred solitude, you rise, not dependent, not desperate, but whole. The quiet transformation that makes people follow you. One day, you will walk into a room and notice something. People move differently around you. They listen more, interrupt less, question you less. They sense something, but they can't name it. What they feel is your presence, not arrogance, not force, just the solid, unmoving presence of someone who no longer needs to prove anything. You do not need a throne to be a king. You do not need an audience to have impact. You do not need validation to be real, because now you are the law. You are the boundary. You are the quiet storm that rewrites the air around you. And that is the power they never taught you. Step into the inner revolution. If this resonated with something buried inside you, a fire, a longing, a memory of who you once were before the world trained you to shrink, then don't let it fade. This isn't just a video. It's a signal, a mirror, a message from your future self. Rise, walk differently, speak less, feel more, and above all, respect yourself first. Because when you do, the world won't have a choice but to follow.